sound is always off.
Mine is not. And so in the last episode, there was a bird chirping, and then I got a text, and it went. Didn't do any research for today. I didn't figure I had to.
Oh, no.
I think today we just riff.
57 minutes of me laughing.
Yeah, and me laughing and dancing in my seat.
Yeah, I'm just, more relieved than
anything.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome, everybody, to Season 1, Episode 6 of the Strongly Worded Podcast. I am Sue O'Lear.
And I'm Johnny Hampton.
And we are here in our lovely dining room studio on Sunday, November 8th, the day after the election was finally called. Johnny's trying really hard not to laugh out loud. But we have been smiling and laughing and celebrating together for the last 24 hours, pretty much.
Yes, we wanted Biden to win.
I realize we kept that under our hats a little. But before we get started with that, I do just want to say, listen, I hope that there are listeners that disagree with us that are listening. I hope that we're not all coming from the same place or with the same experience or all the same views, because then we're in the echo chamber then, and that's not what we want. And I don't want to alienate anybody that might feel different than we do, but you know what, we're going to take this episode and we're going to celebrate a little bit, and we're going to talk about some stuff, and that's what we're going to do. And I hope that even if the election didn't go the way you want it, you'll stick around. You'll still, I'm sure, learn something or take something away from this if you decide you want to.
Yes. This episode is going to be 57 minutes of me laughing. No, I'm just kidding. No, we're gonna talk about, I want to talk about the election night, the days after, how we felt when it was called, which all those things, and I agree with you. I hope there's people out there. I have a lot of friends who aren't happy today.
I do too.
And they are friends. I don't cast aspersions on every person who voted for Trump. I don't do that. So I hope you guys listen to why we're happy, and it connects with you, and you listen in the future.
And maybe you'll find something to be happy about too.
Hopefully you're not you're not out there protesting, because we have to accept the results.
And if you don't like it.
And if you don't like the results, this is America. No,
No, we're not like that at all. All right, so let's start with this. We were both election day voters. We did not vote early. We did not vote by mail. We did not vote twice.
Yes, and we live in a pretty small city in northern Florida. And usually, I've been here 15 years now, and I vote in every election, primaries, everything. Usually I walk in, I walk out. Mm-hmm. This time, it was an hour wait. So the turnout was very high, even in our small little city. Yep. Which made me happy. It was good to see. It doesn't matter, when it comes to that kind of thing, it doesn't matter who you're voting for. We all, races, backgrounds, historically, we died for the right to vote.
That's right.
For representation. So you need to use that whenever you can, no matter who you're voting for. So that made me happy.
I talked with several folks that I work with or that, I correspond with on the daily, and really the majority of the people I come in contact with every day were also election day voters. A few that were early in person. In my circle or in my family, I don't think anybody that I know voted by mail that revealed that to me. I work with a lot of conservatives, so the belief was don't vote by mail.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we were all my precinct the same way. It was the first time I'd ever stood in line.
Now, yeah, my mom voted early. Yeah, I just like the ceremony of going on the day. Mm-hmm. I don't know why. I've always been like that. I always looked forward to voting. So when I became 18, I went. Mm-hmm. I like to go that day. So it was election day was like I said, an hour wait. They had 4 tables. 4. See, they have a small little polling station where I'm at. 4 is usually enough, but I don't know how you didn't know.
I think my polling station in that itty bitty church had more than that. I think we were going in like 8 or 10 at a time.
We had 4.
Wow.
4. We were all. It's funny because there's a coach in the league. He was there. I saw him there, and I'm pretty sure he voted for Trump. He's a good guy though, and we were talking about it afterwards. And I told him when I came out, because I saw him when I came out. I was like, "There's only 4 things in there." He was like, "I couldn't believe it. I thought," he was like, "I thought maybe you had missed one." I was like, "Yeah, there's only 4," because it was him and his wife. It's like, yeah, and they said it took them an hour and a half.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my goodness.
Didn't take us quite that long, but Joe ended up having Tuesday off. And where I work, my office is a polling location.
Oh, okay.
So I worked from home that day because I couldn't be in my office.
I took the day off because I knew. Because, like I said, usually I go in and out. So I go and vote before I go to work. Mm-hmm. But I knew that wasn't going to happen this year. So I took the day off, too.
And every time I stay close to the news like something's going to happen before 7 o'clock. But every time I do it anyway.
Yeah.
At one point, Joe was like, "But they're not saying anything new, honey. Why are we glued to this?" I don't know. It's what I do.
Yeah. Election time, I watch a lot of news. Mm-hmm. A lot.
Which, by the way, ladies and gentlemen of the world, now that we're not watching the 24-hour news cycle to see who wins, you could go back to downloading our podcast and catching up.
Yes, we have a bunch of episodes.
I know, and I feel like attention shifted for a moment. So if you want to go back to us, that's great. We would appreciate it.
But yeah, I do the same thing. I go home, I vote. Then I usually get some breakfast. So I did that. And then I go home and I watch them reporting on people voting.
The reporting on nothing.
No precincts have come in. No polls have closed.
Nothing, but we watch. And I flip between all the channels. The local channels.
Yep.
Cable news.
Yeah, it annoys the hell out of my wife.
Yes, my husband too. It does. And then Johnny and I talked a little bit. We corresponded a little bit, thinking about doing some tweeting, which I bailed on early. I was having a rough time Tuesday night. Going on.
We ended up not tweeting a lot because we just got so caught up in the results.
Right.
And I remember that night, Sue was down. She thought Trump was getting another 4 years. I had taken the position that he was likely to win. Remember, we talked about it. I was like, I don't know what's going to happen, but incumbents usually get a second term. Now, I had done no research.
You're not the one who does the research.
I'm not the researcher. I'm the cool urban. So
he's the cool urban one.
I did not do any research.
The brainy Midwesterner.
But I just knew that normally happened. Now, we now find out that it's really, really rare, extremely rare that an incumbent loses. Mm-hmm. But that night, at first I was like, well, it's not looking good. But I remember the last thing I said to Sue before we stopped corresponding. I was like, well, they're still counting votes in Pennsylvania.
Yes, that's what you said.
And so then, Sue, wasn't active. She went to sleep. I think she's like, yeah, I'm out of here. Yep. I don't want to see this guy win another 4 years. Mm-hmm. I stayed up a little while and listened to what these guys like Steve Kornacki and John King were saying. And I'm a numbers guy. Mm-hmm. And so when I went to bed that night, I remember the next morning telling my wife, because she doesn't watch. She went to sleep. She works long hours. She's like, yo, screw this. Let me know what's going on in the morning. And I said to her, Biden's down the next morning, but he still has a path to win. This is just from me watching the news. Mm-hmm. And what they basically were talking about were the mail-in votes that had not been counted in some of the states because Republicans went to court and asked them to count those votes last, basically. And where these votes were coming from were Democratic strongholds and even the Republican districts, the Democrats in those districts voted by mail. So right away, John King, Steve Kornacki were saying Joe Biden could erase some of these deficits. Now, at the time, he was down 500,000 votes in Pennsylvania. But when they started talking about the votes, and they got all the fancy stuff, which I love. It's like, okay, 2016, there were 2 million votes here. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. He has a great chance to win Pennsylvania. So I got up that next morning kind of optimistic that he would win.
Now, the flip side of that is I'm the one that's usually the optimist.
True.
You even said it to me that night. So that's one of the things that I like about you the most is how hopeful you are. But Tuesday night, I wanted the American people to have stood up and made it so plain that we felt this administration was so horrible. I wanted to see the landslide that night. I wanted the moral victory on Tuesday night.
And the funny thing about that is, even though this count took so long, we got that.
Well, you're finishing my story for me.
I'm sorry.
But no. Yeah, we did. So Tuesday night, that's what I wanted. I wanted the moral victory. Wednesday morning, I woke up and you sent me that tweet.
Yes.
The quote that said, if what you want basically is the moral victory, yeah, you're bummed out. But if what you want is to see Biden elected, there's still hope. Or it's not that bleak.
Yes.
That's what it said. It's not that bleak.
Yeah, because at that point, all the numbers people were like, even though Trump was ahead at that time, because I don't even think they had given Biden Arizona or anything, they said they would rather be Biden than Trump. And that made me happy.
And it took me the whole day to decide I would be happy with just the political win. Right? The whole day. I was coming to terms with some things, I think. And then the week kind of goes on, and the counts roll in, and spoiler alert, we got our landslide. We got our moral victory.
We did.
We got our moral victory.
I mean, the most votes by any president in history. He's up right now in a popular vote by about 7 million, with still more votes to be counted. I think he's at 290 something, because they didn't count Georgia yet. So
why are they still counting Alaska? What's going on up there?
I have no idea. I don't.
Stacey Piliofis, if you are listening, tell me. She lives up there. Tell me what the deal is in Alaska.
I just don't think they were prepared for all these votes.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, and a lot
are
of.
They counting them like this? I'm licking my finger and doing it like I won.
That's like how my father and grandfather used to count their cash. Everyone was getting upset that the votes were taking so long, but these poll workers, most of the time, are like retirees who are getting paid minimum wage. They're donating their time. Take your time, count the votes. Who wins, who loses. But I kind of agree with you to the point where it would have been nice Tuesday night to have this all over with and him get a smackdown. These 4 years for me, it's been a challenging time. I'm a person of character, also a black man, so him being in office was tough.
I'm a woman. Him being in office was tough.
Yeah.
A lot of things I was able to stomach-ish until Kavanaugh happened. It really started to Betsy DeVos happened, and I was like, we got to get rid of this guy. But when Kavanaugh happened, that was extremely triggering for me on a lot of different levels, and his presidency became less something that annoyed and frustrated me and more something that became weighty.
That's a good way to put it, because it has been weighty. And, to be honest, they talk about policies. I can understand what he's saying about trade, and I can understand some of the things that he was saying. But I can't understand the rhetoric. I can't understand you nominating Kavanaugh and then you hear about an alleged sexual assault and you stick with him like there's not a billion other candidates.
Right. How was he the only? How was he the best we had? How did we not have someone equally? I mean, I don't like Amy Coney Barrett's policy or philosophy, but she didn't have this controversy about her. The controversy wasn't really even about her. It was about the ramming through of her candidacy.
Exactly. You know, they wanted him because politically they thought he would help them if they ever brought something to the court. So, you know, for me, from day one, I knew he was going to be awful. I knew that him being in office would empower people to be ignorant. None of that surprised me. And what has surprised me, I don't want to say surprised, what he did do something good for me the last 4 years as a black man. You have a lot of friends and you never think they would be racist or hang out with racists. And the last 4 years showed you how people are not sympathetic or empathetic to what you have to go through in America as a black man or a woman. And it helps you manage your friendships. Because even last night, I was telling you before we started recording, I used to work with a guy. He was a GM at one of our restaurants. And I posted something. I don't know. I forget what the post even was. It was maybe something like, you know, if you were one of the people who told Hillary just to get over it, you know, you got to get over it. I mean, it was something to that effect. And he told me he voted for Trump because he didn't want a lockdown. And he's in a restaurant. And if they close the restaurant, he's not going to make money, blah, 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 blah. And I understood that. And I asked him, well, what about the racism? You're okay with that? And then he goes, oh, you know, of course not. But kids get kidnapped too. And as soon as I read that, I knew I would be deleting him, but I wanted to give him a chance to come back from it. Like, as soon as he said that, like, I knew you don't care about the racism. I don't even know what is. So I asked him, is there anyone who kidnapped kids running for president? Because there's a racist running for president, which is why I'm asking you about that. It took him too long to answer me. And now he'll never get that chance. Yep. Because now, and that's what it's been like the last 4 years. Seeing people that you thought cared about you, talking about things that affect you in a negative way. Because he empowered them to do so. And he normalized that. So.
There are Republicans I voted for in the past, even though even though I am very strongly pro-choice.
Mm-hmm.
Because 10, 15 years ago, I could say two things. Nobody's going to overturn Roe versus Wade. And that wasn't the most meaningful issue to me at the time. A white woman, married, double income.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's probably, and maybe it comes out of empathy or a change in who I spend my time with or who I consider. I don't know what's happened, but now every issue is my issue. Like, there wasn't an issue that I could just say, well, that one doesn't really affect me the way this one does. Or I used to be able, oh, this is funny. I think a lot of people like me used to be able to say this, and oh, well, that's a social issue. I have to vote about, you know, the economy or whatever, you know. Social issues aren't important enough to be the driving force for my vote. I think that still exists.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Definitely how people rationalize that.
Yeah, but you know, but here's the thing: when you rationalize it like that, and you say, "Well, you know, I know there's racial injustice, but I can't really be bothered with that," and then I can't be bothered with you.
Right, and that's where I am now.
So, you know, and like I said, I have friends that are Trump supporters who answer my tough questions. You got to answer them. You can't run from them. You got to answer them now, and then I'll deem if your answer is worthy of me or not. Mm-hmm. That's where I'm at with that. I don't automatically just say, "Oh, I'm gonna cut you." No, I'm not gonna do that. But I'm gonna ask you a question about, because it affects me, and it makes me feel a certain way when I see something. And if I'm your friend, I should be able to challenge you like that. And that answer that you give me is gonna decide how I move forward. But I don't want to get off too much of a tangent to that. Like that's not really election oriented. So I mean, yeah, as the votes came in, it took a toll on me because I was like, I'm ready for this thing to be over. But the process, that's the democratic process.
And it may sound totally corny. I'm okay with that. I'm a white woman from the Midwest. But having Joe Biden come out on more than one occasion and say, "Be patient," allowed me to be patient.
And that's leadership, right? So, and that's what we've been talking about the last 4 years. So when we had a pandemic, we had a president who told you everything was going to be okay. All right, cool. So then you got people still going out with no mask, going out to restaurants and parties and getting sick because he didn't have the leadership. Even this is a classic case, just the election. One guy is saying stop counting the votes, which I don't even understand. How do you support a person who doesn't want all votes counted?
Because he didn't say stop counting the votes. He said don't count the illegal votes.
Nah, he had tweets that said stop the count.
Well, yeah, I mean, yes, but that's what he meant. Like, that's what his supporters are saying. Oh, of course we should count all the votes, all of the legal votes.
So you got one guy doing that, and then you got one guy saying, be patient. That is the difference in leadership. And, for me, this election was about character. And about, a whole lot of other things, but character being number one. Like, I can't deal with the BS anymore. I can't watch this guy anymore. I can't do it. So I'm going to sleep so well now because Trump is out of office. And I'm sorry if that offends people. I don't mean to, but it was a weight on our shoulders. It's like, what is that saying? Get the monkey off your back. He was the monkey. He was like an 800-pound gorilla on your back.
Yeah.
And I don't know how Trump supporters feel, because it's tough when you lose anything. But there has to be, what do you think when you turn the TV and there's people all over the world celebrating that this guy is out? They're partying in the streets in other countries. Why do you think that is?
Right. It's, I think, one of my favorite memes of this morning was try to be the kind of person where people don't party in the streets when you lose your job.
Exactly. How do you not understand that?
Right.
And, I see all these people posting about how the election is illegal and they found all these votes. They've been gaslit. Like I said earlier, they went to court, and in certain states had the rules where they could not count mail-in votes until election day. So that made it look like, and there's a clip actually of Bernie Sanders telling you on the Tonight Show a week and a half before the election what was going to happen. So basically it made it look like Trump was going to win that night. And people fell for it.
The red mirage.
Yeah, they fell for it.
I fell for it.
It's understandable to a certain extent, but once you have information in front of you that shows you what happened, you should be able to accept that. If you can't, something is wrong.
But none of the support the frenzy he whipped up is based on rational thought. He's not leading his supporters to think through issues like that. None of it is based on rational thought.
Here's the thing.
It's a frenzy. It's a cult. You're not supposed to think for yourself.
I can't blame him for you doing something stupid, though. You can and you can't. So, if he says something and he ramps up a rhetoric and a guy goes and shoots somebody, he may be partly responsible, but that guy already is broken.
But there's a flip side to that we just agreed to.
Mm-hmm.
When we talked about Biden saying, be patient, and we were all like, okay, we'll be patient. That's the leadership.
Yes, but either you got a rational mind or you don't.
And that's what I'm saying. He doesn't speak to the rational mind of the people who follow him.
So you telling me 60-something million people are irrational in the United States?
What other president have we had where people are putting trucks or flags in the back of the trucks and having,
Shout out to the boat parties.
Exactly. You know what I mean? Like, it's not.
A lot of people got flags they don't know what to do with now.
He was a celebrity before that. That's what it's like. It's just a culty frenzy. I'm sure. I don't really find Trump to be a Republican at all. It stopped being about Republican policy and thought when they nominated him. Right,
because back in my day, and I'm not even that old, so.
And I was going to say, aren't we in our day? Isn't this it?
I mean, I remember in my 20s, the Republican Party was about conservatism, small government, managing the debt, family values. Wasn't that the whole big thing? And then you got a guy who comes in, explodes the debt, been married three times, all these lawsuits for raping women, and that's your nominee.
Grabbing him by the pussy.
And now begins the rest of my laughing time. No. And now you nominate this guy, and you sit with Republicans, and you say, "Oh, how?" And I think ultimately that they didn't care about any of that stuff. They just wanted the Senate. They wanted the Congress. And that's a bad place to be in when you don't care about others.
So then I wake up Saturday morning. We have basketball all day Saturday, right? First game was at 11 in the morning, but I got up early. I fixed my coffee. I sat down. Joe and I flipped on the news, and we, for a second, landed on MSNBC. And we look, and I said, "This is Saturday, right? That's Joe Scarborough. What's he doing here on a Saturday?"
Oh, they knew.
And he wasn't in his blue sweater. He was in his coat and tie. And I posted on Facebook, today's probably going to be, it's got to be the day.
Yeah.
Because all the weekday guys are back.
They had the heavy hitters.
Their coats. Yeah, the heavy hitters are out, and they're all dressed up.
Jake Tapper in his three-piece suit
right.
on CNN.
Exactly. So we get to the gym, we're setting up, we're doing whatever, and I think, well, I can't sit here and stare at my phone. So I texted my friend Beth, who left a lot of social media. She left Facebook during all of this. It was just too much. Right? But I texted her, and I said, "Listen, if something happens, will you text me, because I'm in the gym today? And I have to know."
It's so funny. I on gym Saturdays, like, I'm kind of a different person almost, I think sometimes. I'm so locked in to the games, and when I'm coaching, I didn't even realize, I was sitting at the table doing the clock and the scoreboard for the game, not even realizing they were going to call the election.
And then my phone goes bzzz. And I look down and it says Beth.
Were you excited?
We had about 10 minutes left until halftime for that game, I think, right?
Yeah.
Right? And so I did. I opened it, and you and Joe and I were sitting there, and I said, "They called it."
Yeah, and Joe told me, and I was like, yes. And one of the best things, what I'm going to always remember from this election cycle. So Sue, she has that golden voice. You can hear it on the podcast. She does all of the announcing for our games in our local league. So, when it's halftime, she gets the crowd going. She tells them, "Put your masks on," and who are you cheering for, and all that stuff. Well, at halftime of this, she let everyone know what happened with the election.
And I was a little nervous about it because I wanted, again, like we started this episode, I didn't want the Trumpers in the crowd to be, I didn't want any fuss. I wanted it to be focused on the excitement that a decision had been reached.
Right. So.
But then I went, nah.
But wait a minute. She didn't want the Trumpers to feel any kind of way as she announced the results in her Biden-Harris shirt.
Yeah, the one time I wore that to the gym. I said that morning because Joe Scarborough put on his coat and tie. I put on my Converse and my Biden-Harris shirt and my pearls. And I wore them to Carver in Bunnell proudly. And do you know how many compliments I got on that shirt?
So after she announced the election, I don't know what I was doing, but I was in the crowd, and there was an elderly black woman. You know, she had one of those chairs that's a walker and turns into a chair. You're not using it as a walker. And she grabbed me and she said, "Excuse me." I said, "Yeah." She said, "What did she say about the election?" And she said that, I said, "Oh, she said Biden won." She's like, "Really?" And we celebrated. Like, I mean, we were dancing, and it's just, people were so tired of the heaviness.
Yes. And it did. It changed the energy in the gym. I was relieved when I heard cheers go up. Because you just don't know how something like that's going to go over.
Yeah, I mean.
But I was relieved when there were a few women in the front row that were watching me like I was getting ready to announce the winning lottery ticket.
Yeah, I think we were all heavily invested in this election on both sides. Mm-hmm. But you know what I found interesting? People saying, "Oh, there's going to be a civil war." Like, a civil war? Because we're changing presidents? Like, I don't even understand what's going on with that.
I always took a lot of that to mean we would have a civil war if we didn't change presidents. And not that I'm saying we would or I believed that we would, but that's just how I took some of that comment to mean.
So I don't know, like, Dave Chappelle was on SNL last night.
Yes, he was.
And during his monologue, he talked about something he called the N-word lessons. Like, I'm not going to say the word. I promised my grandfather I would not. But I know what he means by that. Because when you're a black person, you're used to not getting your way in elections. It happens all the time. I bet you if you ask most, especially most young black people, they didn't want Joe Biden as the nominee. Mm-hmm. He wasn't the one they were looking for. So all of a sudden now, in my mind, so if a white person doesn't get who they want for president, we're going to have a civil war? Nah, you got to learn some of those lessons. Mm-hmm. Get through it. Yep. Because we've been getting through it. Yep. You can get through it. To me, a president usually is just a figurehead. Now, what we've learned now with Trump is that it means a little bit more. Because you can't have someone who I think is has a moral deficit leading the country. It makes us look bad. Just look around the world. You can tell. They weren't this happy when we got the first black president. No one celebrated when John McCain lost, or when the first George Bush lost. Right. Nobody was out in the street celebrating. Like, that's what I want to hear from. I want to know why Trump supporters think that is, if he's such a great guy.
I don't think they care.
Man.
I don't think they care. Yesterday and today, since last night when we got to finally hear from Kamala this week in a...
Oh, Lord. America and Czechoslovakia and Italy. Sue is getting choked up thinking about Kamala Harris's speech.
Beautiful speech.
Yes. It has, it's amazing to me as a black man how my grandfather and my father dealt with segregation. And I have been lucky enough to see the first black president and now the first black female vice president. It can be overwhelming when you think of it. And it's funny, I was watching a clip of a commentator, S.E. Cupp. She's a Republican. She's on CNN a lot. I actually like her a lot. And she was watching, she voted for Biden. She's a Republican, voted for Biden. She told a story. She has a 5-year-old son. She doesn't talk politics with him, and she said, because obviously he's 5 years old. But she was watching the speeches, and the 5-year-old came in and said, "Mommy, what's going on?" And she said, "Oh, America has just picked them to run the country." And her son said, "But she's a woman." And, she said, "Yeah." And then he said, "Mommy, does that mean one day you can run the country?" And so, that's the historical significance of her being vice president. The first woman ever elected to the White House. That's an amazing thing. And I think it's so poetic that he will not get a second term and Obama got 2. Because you know where I stand on him and Obama. I think his whole reason for doing everything was to erase what Obama did. And I think it's so great that he was kicked out of office, in the most part, in urban centers where black people voted, and a black woman is going to be in the White House now. It is, to me, that makes me very happy.
When we were watching her last night, at one point, because I was very emotional, surprise, and I felt Joe turn around and look at me, watch her. And that was a really special moment to me, because my husband is my favorite human. He doesn't care about this stuff the way I do. He pays attention to it because I do. He rarely comes home and flips on the news to see what's happening in the world unless I'm here talking about something. But it was meaningful to him to see how I was reacting to it, and that is a moment that I will also hold on to. I do have, there's something that I want to talk about in terms of that, but really my burning question was, after that, when we turned on Saturday Night Live, how did Saturday Night Live know what Kamala was going to wear?
That was crazy.
You have to,
She
they
had...
get to text Kamala Harris and be like, "Hey, girl, I'm playing you tonight. What you wearing?"
I thought the exact same thing. She came out in the exact outfit.
White suit and that cream... satiny looking shirt.
I don't know how that happened. That was, yes.
It was amazing to me.
Yeah, I thought that when I saw it. I was like, wow, that's crazy. She had me cracking up when she said, "And your mother's drunk." And she's going to.
She's going to laugh. Because she's drunk. And then she's going to cry. Because she's happy.
Because she's drunk.
Because she's drunk.
Oh, man. So, now we have the next 70 days with a lame duck president who, in my view, wasn't doing anything the last 70 days before this. And although we can bask in the glory that he'll be gone, and he will be gone, I don't pay any attention to the lawsuits. They're not throwing out people's votes. They can do recounts, but recounts get you hundreds of votes. Not tens of thousands, not even 1,000. He's not going to win. There are no illegal people voting. If you believe that, I'm sorry to break your heart. There are no illegal people voting. The election is not going to be challenged. No one stole it. He lost. And to be honest, he lost the last election. He won by a total of 70,000 votes. He's the first president to ever lose the popular vote twice. So the majority of the country never wanted him. And that's something, if you're a supporter of his, you got to come to grips with that. He was not ever wanted by the majority of the country. And he'll be gone if they got to drag his ass out. So I'm never going to discuss that with anybody, because we are a nation of laws. And if he doesn't leave, he gets dragged out. Now, I would love to see that. I'll tune in. Maybe I'll take the day off inauguration day just in case they have to drag him out. But now I'm worried about the time between now and then. And the coronavirus is out of control right now. Like, while we were all tuned in to the election, we are now at record highs in terms of cases. And he has not had any semblance, Nothing that resembles a plan. So I don't know what's going to happen in the next 70 days or whatever it is.
I don't know. Except that Joe and Kamala are appointing their task force tomorrow.
Yeah, and I bet you that task force will have actual scientists and doctors that they trust. And I don't know what they're going to do. This is what I mean by empathy. Full disclosure, I'm an accountant for a restaurant company. If they close restaurants, I got to stay home. You can't. There's no accounting to do when there's no sales. However, I also don't want to die. So, exactly. 6 in one hand. No, I mean, so if they deem that they got to shut down again, then they just got to shut down again. I mean, I don't think that's going to happen. I ultimately think you can function in this society as long as you take the necessary precautions. But yeah, I'm worried about the next 70 days for sure.
I just wonder how. I don't want to give him any headspace or airspace to wonder too much, but like, how much damage can you do in the next 70 days? Like, is he going to be vindictive?
I mean, how much damage?
Is he going to throw his hands up?
How much damage did he do?
Take his hands off the wheel? Like,
his hands were never on the wheel. So how much damage did he do between, let's say, April 1st and May 4th when the pandemic hit?
right.
I mean...
But even outside of that, like, are we just going to see a bunch of pardons and him kind of hiding out? Are we going to... Is he sort of inadvertently going to let Joe and Kamala start doing anything because he's just... I don't know.
I don't know. I was watching the news and it was saying that Biden might meet with McConnell on a stimulus package. Like, I don't know how that all works. I'm not well versed enough to say. Right. If I were Trump, I would try to do some kind of good legislation before I left, because right now he has nothing.
Nothing.
If you had to find out what is his signature piece of legislation, what is it? We don't know. You look back. If you look back, And
nothing signature about him is legislation.
Nothing.
Appointees or things like that.
Obama, you got the Affordable Care Act. Bush, you got, he established the Homeland Security Office. There's things that you can.
He made animal cruelty a felony.
Yeah. I mean, who's that? Who, Bush?
No.
Trump? Did he really?
Yeah.
Does he know his son is out there?
Well, that was the whole point when it came out. How
that's gonna be his signature legislation, animal cruelty.
And there was something about what was the one about the prisons?
Oh well, prison reform. If you pass that legislation, but then you pass a whole bunch of other stuff that is contrary to that, what does it really mean?
Right.
Like
Exactly. If you
but I guess
animal cruelty bill, but your kids are out big game hunting, what does it mean?
So I guess that he can lean on that. Yeah, that.
Do you think that history is going to be kinder to him or
he's
harsher?
Gonna get killed in history? He's the worst president.
Don't yell at me. I'm just the moderator.
He is. You're not just the moderator. People, history's not gonna be kind to him at all. In any history book across this world, he is the worst president we've ever had. Period. Full stop. He was the most divisive. He had the worst rhetoric, and he didn't get anything done when he had the Congress at his fingertips the first 2 years. We still haven't seen the health plan that he said he was going to bring. No infrastructure. He was not a job creator. He is the worst president of our lifetime. Sorry, that's just a fact. Stock market doesn't determine how good the economy is doing. Because guess what? The dude who's working 3 jobs can't buy a stock.
Right.
I know.
Agree.
The Strongly Worded podcast is brought to you by the good folks at the Flagler County Basketball Program. For high-quality, community-based youth basketball, you don't have to look any further than the Flagler County Hurricanes. Open to young people 8 through 18. Season starts November 7th. Sign up now at flaglerhurricanes.com. So history's not gonna history's not gonna be kind to us as Americans, period. Mm-hmm. Because how do we go from someone like President Obama to Donald Trump? How did Republicans go from John McCain, Mitt Romney, to Donald Trump? And that's the thing that I don't have to look into that. I have my views. That's not really for this podcast, but the people who voted for him, they got some soul searching to do, whether they know it or not. Especially for me, there's some people who voted for him the first time, and they're Republican,
and I'm hoping for the best,
right? But then you got 4 years of his actual record. So you take away all the personality and the character stuff. You got 4 years of his record. How would you vote for him again? And what cracks me up is they were saying a lot of the places that voted for him had the highest COVID cases.
Mm-hmm. Of course they did.
How do you vote for a man who's letting your fellow people die? I don't understand that. So you got to ask yourself.
That's what I'm saying. When I said earlier, none of it is based on rational thought.
Well, that's a scary thing.
Based on rational thought.
That's a scary, scary thing then, to me.
Think of other horrible leaders in the world that rose to power. Think, it wasn't based on rational thought. It was a frenzy and fear and
yeah, but
emotion.
the
Not
thing,
on, this is my healthcare plan.
the thing I will never understand is these people, like, I see through the BS. You can't tell me you voted for Trump because of economic anxiety when the economy was good to begin with. So you got to come up with a different reason. Because when President Obama left, the economy was in great shape. So you can't tell me economic anxiety is why you voted for Donald Trump. You can't tell me, oh, I needed an outsider. Because that doesn't track either. Because why would you elect a man who never had office? Like, you got to do a deep dive into your own soul, and then you got to find out what's going on there. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how the next 4 years are going to be. I hope that as a country we can bridge some of these gaps, but I'm not optimistic about that.
Well, that's definitely where we are today. Is like, this is an election win, but it's not changing what the fundamental problems and issues are that still need to be fixed. Like, this doesn't fix racism. This doesn't fix sexism. I mean, it's definitely more of a step in the appropriate direction. But, first thing this morning, I'm arguing with somebody on Facebook who's now talking about how Kamala rose to power on her back. And I'm like, seriously, I'm seeing women criticize her for her smile being too big last night.
I mean, I had an argument today with another black man saying, I guess a friend of mine posted that Kamala Harris didn't mention her father in the speech. Then I posted an article. I think and I don't know too much about the relationship, but it looks like they've been estranged since she was very young. So I'm like, I don't know about you guys, but I'm not that gracious to mention a man who hasn't been around and give him, any props for where I've gone.
Right. Her parents divorced in 1971. She was 5.
Right, and then apparently,
After that, yeah.
And then another guy, and I don't mention race a lot. I try not to, but these are important. So
we mention race all the time.
Do I really?
We do.
I try to mention it when it's appropriate to the stories, and I guess a lot of the stories, So another black man then said, "Oh, she's only black when she needs votes," and I said, "No, she's probably black all the time." But I said, I'm not going to respond anymore to this because I find it crazy that you can question a person's blackness who went to a historically black university and joined a black sorority.
Mm-hmm.
Was she not claiming her blackness then?
Right.
She wasn't getting votes then. So, yeah, I don't, I think we have problems all over. And I think sometimes in the black community, we want black people to be monolithic. And like, I don't know, like, I don't measure anyone's blackness. Like, I don't know, they have those infrared thermometers now, but they don't have one. They don't have one for how black you are. So I mean, we're gonna have a lot of issues. But I always go back to what Hillary Clinton said. She said this a lot during her campaign. And I wasn't a huge Hillary Clinton fan, but I did not like Donald Trump. So, but she used to always say, "I don't plan to change minds. I'm going to change laws." And so, for me, I understand that, and I agree with her 2,000%. You want to change police brutality? You're not going to change that woman's mind in the suburbs who thinks black people are treated equally and they shouldn't be protesting. You take away some of the protections for the police who do bad things. You change the laws, and then it won't happen as much because they don't feel like they can get away with it. And I hope that Biden is ready to take on that challenge because that's what we need. We're not going to change people's minds. I mean, we've been in this country now long, long time. And it's not going to change. We're going to have racists. We're going to have sexists. And that's just what it's going to be. Sorry to sound so bleak, but that's just how it is. And like we talked about this election night, Sue was just, she didn't understand. A lot of people don't understand. Like even I said, I don't understand why people vote for him. But at the same time, I've lived in this country a long time. So is the people before me. We know what it is. This country has never been unified. It's always lacked empathy. And that's the word I always use. We will never be the country we want to be because we lack empathy. People say, well, how could you say that? Well, how could you let slavery go on? If you empathize with a man who they weren't even allowing him to learn how to read.
This country wasn't founded on it. It's like what my son said the other day.
Right.
He said, I always tell the kids, people are like, they tell you who they are, believe them.
Mm-hmm.
And he turned it right around.
Yeah,
He used it on me. This country is behaving exactly how it was founded to behave, Mom.
Exactly. So the only way you do that is you change laws. And Trump was never going to do that because he didn't think there was a problem. Right. I hope Joe Biden thinks there's a problem. I hope he learned lessons from the 1994 crime bill. I hope they listen to the progressive wing of the party. I don't think they should move all the way left because, that's not what the whole country wants. But you got to change some laws, and they got to happen quickly.
Just for kicks, you want to make a prediction on who Kamala's running mate's going to be in 2024?
So everyone says Joe's only doing one term. Has he said that?
No, not that I know of.
Oof.
He's what, 78?
Isn't he 7? Was he 70? Yeah, I think he's 77, right? Yeah. She would have to go through a primary process, right? Which I don't even know if she would win.
You don't think Kamala would win the primary?
Did she win this year?
But as the vice president?
I don't know.
I'm not willing to.
Did she even come close to winning?
I think that a lot of that was orchestrated so early on, though. Because Joe Biden wasn't even on the radar when Joe Biden became the nominee, for crying out loud.
I don't know. Let's see. Who would she pick?
I don't think there's any way she doesn't get the nomination.
So
I can't listen. I'm joyous today. It's a lovely day.
You asked the question, so
that's not. In my world, Kamala runs for president. Who's her running mate?
Cory Booker.
Ooh, I like it. I say Amy Klobuchar.
That's a good one.
We'll see. We'll
that's a good one.
We'll reconvene in 4 years.
No, that's a better political one. Um,
She's a nice middle-aged Midwestern white woman. I'm sorry, listeners. That joke is never going to be funny to me.
I mean, yeah, that's politically. I think that's better.
I feel like she's just been amazing, and it's even just since in the last year and a half, in the last 18 months.
My question is, in the coming years, I don't know the age requirements. When does AOC run for Senate? Because that's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
She's tied to Chuck Schumer.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yoho.
And when does she run for president? Because I think that's going to happen too.
I just hope it happens in a timely manner so that she'll get it. Because I don't think she could, she couldn't run in 2024 and get it. I don't think.
Do you think?
Keep moving.
So now we've moved past the election, but do you think America is going to elect a woman president?
Yes, I do. I think America is going to elect a woman in 2024.
And you think that woman's going to be Kamala Harris?
I think that woman's going to be Kamala Harris.
So you think America,
our America,
the same America who voted for Donald Trump, is then 8 years later? That's only 8 years now.
I know. It might be 4 years later.
No, 8 years. Because he won in 2016.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I see what you're saying. I was hearing a different.
So they voted for Trump, and 8 years later, a black woman's going to be president.
Let me read this. It says, "You are such a hopeful person. It's one of the things I love most about you." End it there.
Yeah, I mean,
that's a message that Johnny sent to me on election night when I was so mopey.
That's a lot of hope, though. That is a lot of hope.
Kamala Amy.
2024. Oh, man. Kamala Amy, no more bullshit.
No more bullshit. A lot of teeth.
Man.
Who's going to be the Republican nominee? Just for kicks. We'll see. We'll see if we're right when we're in our podcast studio presiding over our network in 2024.
That would be nice.
And what?
So I've heard, I got a good friend, one of my best friends down here is a Republican. He wants Tim Scott to run.
Really?
Yeah, he wants Tim Scott. I have no clue who the Republicans will run. Mm-hmm. I don't see anyone on the radar right now. There's a lot of Democrats on the come up. I don't know.
No, because they need someone young
and
of color.
You think so?
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, those Republicans love a Republican of color.
Well, he wants Tim Scott. I think was he a senator of South Carolina or something like that. He said he wishes Tim Scott were, but I think that's short-sighted. Like black people just don't vote just because the dudes are black. Joe Biden.
Don't understand that.
Joe Biden is an example of that. Yeah. You had Cory Booker, you had Kamala Harris, and Joe Biden won all the southern states. That's not where. I mean, I don't know how they don't understand that. Are you only voting for Donald Trump because he's white? Did you only vote for John McCain because he's white? No.
I mean, I think that there are some people that
only vote because not 60 million people.
Well, not only. All right, you're right.
Like
I love this image right now, though, that is of Stacey Abrams. You're reading how she didn't throw up her hands and stomp away and go back to writing romance novels. She dug in after she lost, and she ensured a fair election in her state. She held the door open for the next person to come through.
That's also a good VP. Mm-hmm. I mean, I never thought I'd live to see the day Georgia go blue. That is, I think that's the most surprising thing of election night for me. I never thought they would win Texas at all.
It's interesting to see things coming closer. I said that after we had our gubernatorial election, 2 years ago? It's interesting to see that it even came close here in Florida.
Yeah, I mean, Texas is it used to be blue, but you got to work hard, and that's a very large state, super diverse. You got to work hard down there, and it's getting closer, but I don't know if Biden's gonna be.
No, I really want to make it cool and exciting and important for our kids to vote. We have kids in our group that turned 18 that we're like, which one's which?
Like, listen, down here in Florida, your vote counts. It's close all the time. You know, being from New York, where your vote pretty much never counts in a presidential election, that joint's going blue.
I mean, if there was even any way to get them interested in local elections too, it would be amazing.
Yeah, I would hope that the thing that was learned, like you see so many of these fake activists, or these, you know, all these people with their fake intelligence. Voting doesn't matter. You didn't learn that from this past election that it does. We're talking about what was it a couple of days ago? He was up 9,900 votes in Georgia. I mean, every vote matters so much.
And that, you know what? And so yeah, that's how we have to teach it. We have to instill that in our 5-year-old kids that we're not really talking politics to yet, but you can still teach them the parts of it that they can understand at 5.
My son, who I guess his civics class is doing a great job because he was all on this. When I went to vote, he texted me. He was like, you know, how's it going? I tell her the line is long. He said, make sure you vote for the right person.
Thank you, son. I'll do my best.
I was like, yes, I'm going to vote for I'm voting for Donald. No.
All right. So you heard it here first. We're going to have a Kamala, Klobuchar. Who did you say? Booker?
Yeah.
See what happens.
I might change Booker now because he doesn't do anything for her politically.
Abrams.
Yeah, that would probably get Georgia.
Well, I just can't wait to see how it unfolds, who is appointed. I'm going to be just as excited to see Betsy DeVos leave as Donald Trump.
Yeah, she's gone. My man Bill Barr's out of here. Let's see.
Your man. Your man, Bill Barr.
He's gone. Yeah, it's going to be interesting because I think they keep mentioning all these names. Oh, Elizabeth Warren this and yeah, but then what happens to the Senate?
That's the follow-up to that, and there's that conversation already. Who's replacing Kamala? Who would?
You know, I think Biden.
Those are appointments.
I don't know. I think doesn't each state have its like own kind of law?
I don't know. A listener will have to let us know. Straighten us out.
Somebody smarter than us in the group. Read past all the suggestions from my wife.
Right. Well, listen, in the group, we will, when we post this episode, definitely have some questions to extend to all of you, and we want to hear from you and your thoughts on what we've talked about, on what we just voted on. I hope, again, that we have listeners who have lots of different beliefs. And like I said yesterday in the gym when I had the privilege of announcing that the election had been called, if anything, can't we all come together and really be proud and excited of the fact that democracy works and that your vote matters? And, you know, I'm hopeful for a lot of different reasons, but for one, that it didn't take marching in the streets and everything this week. We could have this week off. All we had to do was go to the ballot box. And that was pretty awesome. Weight lifted. So you can find us in a lot of different places. We would love to talk to you in our Facebook group, the Strongly Worded Podcast private Facebook group. You can search it. You can find us. But know that when we post and talk in that group, it cannot be seen publicly. It stays in the group. Now, take that how you will.
Mm-hmm.
We have some interesting conversations. We are on Instagram at Strongly Worded Pod. I haven't snapped. Have you snapped?
No, I haven't snapped. I mean, I think. Yeah, listen.
We're there.
Listen.
When we hire an intern, they could do
Come
that
on.
for us. You're right. I'm getting on it. He's gesturing to the 3 kids that live in my house.
What's up?
That are on social media all the time. That's brilliant, actually.
You got You got a TikTok expert in here.
That's right. We are on Twitter.
Strongly worded P.
We're still there. Strongly worded P. All right. Thanks for coming over today.
Yes. I was extremely excited to do this podcast because I am thrilled that Joe Biden won. I'm not going to lie. Mm-hmm. No offense to any Trump supporters. I'm happy that guy's gone. It will allow me to breathe a little bit easier. And that's that.
And I'm not going to lie. I love that we've got a woman in the White House. And I love that our First Lady is a teacher.
Oh, that's big. See, we didn't even talk. We didn't even get to that. That is going to be big.
We'll have to revisit
down
the road. All right. Thank you for listening, everybody. Strongly
The Strongly Worded podcast is written and produced by Johnny Hampton and Sue O'Lear. Music production and vocals by